Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a simple truth. Everything you touch is either growing or decaying. And the difference between the two comes down to one choice: to neglect or to nourish. Life doesn't shout this law at us. It whispers. It shows up in the quiet moments, the skipped workout, the unread book, the phone call you keep planning but never make. Neglect is subtle. It doesn't ruin your life overnight, but it will give it enough time. And nourishment, that works the same way. Just a little effort, a little discipline, a little attention, and suddenly the garden begins to bloom. Not because of luck, but because the law is universal. What you nourish thrives, and what you neglect dies. Neglect your health, and illness appears. Nourish it, and strength grows. Neglect your relationships, and distance forms. Nourish them, and connection deepens. Neglect your mind, and confusion takes over. Nourish it, and clarity returns. This law is inescapable. It governs success and failure, joy and frustration, progress and decline. So the question is not whether this law exists. The question is, which side of it are you living on today? Keynote 1 expanded to 600 words. No headings or brackets. Neglect is one of the most powerful forces in life, yet it rarely gets the attention it deserves. Most people imagine failure as a dramatic collapse, a sudden disaster, or a loud moment of breakdown. But the truth is far quieter. Failure usually begins with something small that we decided to postpone, overlook, or ignore. Neglect is subtle, gentle, almost polite at first. It does not knock on the door loudly. It tiptoes in unnoticed. But once it settles, it begins its work. And if left unchecked, it works with absolute consistency. Nothing declines all at once. Your health does not collapse in a single week. Your finances do not fall apart in one afternoon. Relationships do not break overnight. Dreams do not die because of one bad day. Decline is gradual. It starts when you say you will begin tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes someday. That small moment of avoidance creates the first crack, and from that crack grows a pattern. One moment of neglect becomes 2, then 3, until the pattern becomes a lifestyle. The problem with neglect is that it disguises itself as comfort. It feels easier to rest than to exercise, easier to scroll than to study, easier to avoid the conversation than to have it. Neglect always chooses the softer path. It whispers that skipping the effort today will not matter. And to be fair, it usually doesn't matter today. Nothing bad happens immediately. But neglect never works alone. It brings companions deterioration, disorder, confusion, and regret. By the time the consequences appear, the damage is already deep. Consider your physical health. You do not feel out of shape in a week. But months of careless eating and missed workouts begin to show. Energy drops. Confidence weakens. The body becomes a reflection of 1,000 small decisions that were too easy to avoid. Neglect does not demand a grand mistake. It only needs repeated inaction. The same principle applies to learning. A sharp mind becomes a dull one, not because knowledge disappears suddenly, but because the pursuit of learning is quietly abandoned. Days without reading turn into weeks, curiosity fades, thoughts lose clarity. Neglect slowly steals mental sharpness in the same way rust eats away at metal quietly, steadily, and without announcement. Relationships follow the same pattern. A relationship rarely breaks because of one argument or one misunderstanding. It breaks because appreciation is no longer expressed, because small gestures stop, because communication shrinks. Neglect builds distance where connection once lived. People drift apart not through storms of conflict, but through the silence of inattention. Neglect has a unique talent for making you believe you still have plenty of time. It convinces you that you can fix everything later. But later is a dangerous promise, because life does not guarantee the opportunity to repair what was left unattended. By the time you realize what you have lost, the cost of restoration is far higher than the cost of prevention. Neglect is powerful because it is passive. You do not have to do anything to invite it. Stop caring, stop trying, stop growing, and neglect will step in automatically. It thrives in the absence of effort. The moment you stop nourishing your life, neglect begins to take over. Recognizing this law is not meant to create fear, but awareness. Once you understand that everything left alone begins to decline, you gain the ability to take control. You learn to notice the small warning signs before they turn into crisis. You become more intentional with your time, attention, and habits. The path to decline is easy, but so is the choice to interrupt it. It only takes a single act of awareness to turn back from the direction neglect leads. If you want, I can expand keynote 2 or 3 in the same style. Nourishment is one of the most transformative forces available to any person. It is quiet, steady, patient, and incredibly powerful. Growth never arrives as a surprise. It is the natural outcome of consistent attention, effort, and care. Many people imagine success as a dramatic event, a lucky break, a big opportunity, or a sudden rise. But real success is built through nourishment, through the small actions repeated daily that strengthen your mind, your body, your character, and your future. What receives your attention expands. What receives your effort improves. What receives your care becomes stronger. Nourishment does not demand perfection. It requires presence. Growth begins the moment you decide to give something the energy it deserves. A single workout does not transform your body, yet it awakens your discipline. A single hour of reading does not elevate your intelligence, yet it refreshes your mind. A short, meaningful conversation does not fix every relationship, yet it deepens connection. Nourishment works through accumulation. The small efforts you invest today stack on top of tomorrow's efforts, and together they create momentum. Momentum becomes progress. Progress becomes confidence. Confidence becomes transformation. Most people underestimate the value of consistent nourishment because the early results are invisible. Nothing seems to change at first. You exercise for a week and the mirror looks the same. You save a little money and your bank account seems unchanged. You practice a new skill and still feel clumsy, but beneath the surface, something powerful is happening. Nourishment is planting seeds. Seeds do not sprout overnight, but given time, they will break through the soil and become visible to everyone. Those who quit too early never get to see the harvest. Those who stay consistent eventually experience the undeniable rewards. Nourishment also elevates your identity. Each time you choose to take care of something important, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of growth. You begin to trust yourself more. You start seeing yourself as someone who shows up, someone who honors commitments, someone who takes responsibility for their future. This shift in identity is far more valuable than the results themselves. Results can fade if habits fade. But a strengthened identity remains with you and influences every part of your life. Nourishment brings clarity as well. When you give attention to your goals, they become sharper. When you give attention to your strengths, they become stronger. When you give attention to your weaknesses, they become manageable. Nourishment removes guesswork because it aligns your daily actions with your deeper values. It closes the gap between who you are and who you want to become. Nourishment also has a remarkable impact on relationships. People thrive when they feel seen, heard, and appreciated. A thoughtful message, a few minutes of genuine listening, a gesture of kindness, or a shared moment of honesty creates connection. These small efforts build trust, warmth, and loyalty. Neglect weakens relationships quietly, but nourishment strengthens them with equal subtlety. Over time, those small deposits of care create bonds that withstand challenges. Financial nourishment works in the same way. Saving a little consistently, learning a bit more about money, investing in your skills, and avoiding unnecessary expenses may feel small, but they build a foundation of stability and independence. Every wise choice compounds. Compounding is nourishment in numerical form. It rewards patience. It multiplies even the smallest effort. Nourishment is the opposite of crisis. It prevents decline before decline even begins. When you nourish your health, you avoid illness. When you nourish your goals, you avoid regret. When you nourish your spirit with learning and reflection, you avoid confusion. Growth is never an accident. It is the reward given to those who nourish their lives with intention. Nourishment may be slow, but it is reliable. It may be quiet, but it is powerful. It may be ordinary, but it creates extraordinary outcomes. The law is simple: what you nourish grows. The only question is what you will choose to nourish today. The law that governs neglect and nourishment does not seek your permission. It functions with complete independence from your wishes, moods, or circumstances. You cannot pause it, escape it, or negotiate with it. Every day you participate in it through your choices, whether you realize it or not. Life is shaped by a principle that rewards attention, effort, and discipline while quietly penalizing avoidance, delay, and indifference. This law does not punish out of cruelty. It simply reflects back the truth of how you choose to live. Most people underestimate the reach of this law. They believe that only big decisions determine their destiny. In reality, the small choices repeated daily hold far greater influence. A single day of neglect means little, but a pattern of neglect shapes a future. A single act of nourishment may seem insignificant, but consistency eventually changes everything. You cannot turn off this law. You only choose which side of it you will experience. Every action places you on one side or the other. This principle governs health. If you nourish your body with movement, rest, and good fuel, strength appears. If you neglect those same areas, weakness arrives. The law does not create surprises. It reflects what you have given or withheld. People often blame age, luck, or circumstance, but the deeper cause is usually the simple math of repeated choices. Nourishment creates vitality. Neglect creates decline. The same law shapes your thinking. Invest time in reading, listening, reflecting, and learning, and your mind becomes clearer, sharper, more capable. Allow distractions, noise, or aimlessness to dominate your days, and confusion creeps in. Mental clarity is not a natural gift. It is the product of nourishment. A wandering mind is not a mystery. It is the product of neglect. The law remains consistent for everyone. Your relationships follow this rule as well. When you give time, presence, appreciation, and sincerity, connection grows. Trust strengthens. Distance shrinks. When you withhold attention or allow business to crowd out meaningful interaction, relationships cool. The change may be slow, but it becomes visible with time. Whether the connection grows or fades depends on how you treat it. You cannot escape the law even in matters of the heart. Your goals are governed by it too. Dreams flourish when you nurture them with planning, commitment, practice, and patience. They decay when you treat them casually or postpone the actions they require. People often assume their dreams failed because they were not meant to be. More often, they simply stop nourishing them. A neglected dream has no chance. A nourished dream has every opportunity. This law is neutral. It plays no favorites. It does not care where you come from, what you have been through, or how uncertain your past has been. It responds only to what you do today that gives you tremendous power. It means tomorrow can be different from yesterday. It means change is always possible. It means the moment you begin to nourish the important parts of your life, the law shifts in your favor. You are never stuck. You are never trapped. You are always choosing. The law continues whether you participate intentionally or unintentionally. The key is to recognize that your daily choices write the script of your future. Each decision is a vote for growth or decline, strength or weakness, progress or stagnation. When you understand that you cannot escape the law, you begin to respect its influence. When you respect its influence, you begin to harness its power. The law is always working. The only question is whether it is working for you or against you. Every life moves in the direction of its daily choices. Nothing changes by accident, nothing improves without intention, nothing declines without cause. The law that governs neglect and nourishment is constant, unbroken, and universal. It does not wait for perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It responds only to what you give, what you build, what you nurture. This truth is not meant to intimidate you, it is meant to liberate you. Because the moment you choose to nourish your health, your mind, your relationships, your goals, your future, the entire direction of your life begins to shift. You do not have to repair everything today. You only have to begin. One decision toward growth weakens the grip of neglect. One act of nourishment starts a new pattern. One moment of commitment reshapes who you are becoming. The same law that once worked against you can just as powerfully work for you. The path to strength, clarity, purpose, and progress is built one choice at a time. So stand at this moment with awareness and with intention. Your future is not waiting on luck or chance. It is waiting on the choices you make today. Nourish what matters, and the law will reward you every single day.